The year is 1981. The arcade gaming industry is blooming, and longtime game product company Nintendo decided to make a hit arcade game. Well, let's do that again, guys. Gaming, however, was shifting from something you went out and did to something you could do at home. Companies like Atari and Mattel were trying their hand at making video game consoles, little electronics you could plug into your television and play at home whenever you wanted. However, a great video game crash in 1983 came and blew the wind out of gaming sales here in America. Was there any hope for video games, or was this blooming industry ready to die out just like that? Well, our good friend Nintendo came back around to give it the old college try. In 1983, Nintendo joined the home console market in Japan with the release of the Family Computer, more commonly known as the Famicom. The Famicom was cartridge-based, featuring 8-bit graphics, and was designed to be used by technophiles and normal people alike. It started slow, but by 1984, the Famicom had a lot of momentum and was the best-selling video game console in Japan. With this success, Nintendo aimed for North America, and on October 18, 1985, the Nintendo Entertainment System released, along with a launch package of 17 games. These games included some hits that people still talk about today, including Duck Hunt, Wrecking Crew, Ice Climber, and Excitebike. However, the biggest NES launch game was this unassuming game, Super Mario Bros. Designed by Donkey Kong director Shigeru Miyamoto, the game featured Mario, the star of the arcade games Donkey Kong and Mario Bros., and it popularized the platforming genre, a video game genre involving the player-controlled character defeating enemies and jumping from platform to platform, with the goal of making it to the end of the level or defeating a boss. Super Mario Bros. Would end up redefining what a video game could be, and is rightly seen nowadays as even more than just a classic video game, but the classic video game. Put all of that aside though, because playing this game in 2020 is a different experience than playing this game in 1985, and I'll be covering how the original Super Mario Bros. Holds up nowadays. For all Mario games like this, I'll mainly be looking at a few things: game presentation, level design, Mario's controls, the enemies and hazards, the power-ups, and other smaller aspects of the game are the important stuff to me. Now that we've got the game up, you can see that we have two options, one player and two player. And by that, I mean we have one option, one player. The two-player mode lets the first player use Mario, and lets the second player use Luigi. Wow, what a privilege. Unfortunately, you can only play one at a time, with both players rotating upon the death of whoever is playing. Even dumber, you can't even play this mode with just one controller, despite the fact that only one person is playing at a time. It's cool as a mode, but let's be honest, who hasn't been disappointed by this feature at least once before? Anyways, now that I'm done bitching, it's time to get into the game. Yep, this is a video game. The first thing that stands out about Super Mario Bros. Is the luscious blue sky and green grass of World 1-1. A lot of video games in the early and mid-1980s preferred all black backgrounds, and so to see a video game that looks like this was a godsend. Unfortunately, all castle and underground levels use an all-black background, but hey, that's besides the point. This game was a landmark in video game graphics, as silly as that seems nowadays, and it's one of the first video games created that still looks pretty good now. 1-1 doesn't just nail the graphics though. It was thoughtfully designed with the intention of easing the player into the controls and gameplay. It's easy to take this for granted, but the concept of a difficulty curve was rather unknown at this time in video game history. Nintendo really nailed it here on their first try, giving birth to perhaps video gaming's most iconic level. You can't have a great game without my favorite of the five senses, hearing, and this game's soundtrack does the job. The soundtrack is composed by Koji Kondo and is as iconic as it is brief. The main theme is maybe the most recognizable song in video game history. The underground theme is almost as iconic. And the underwater theme is very good as well. Unfortunately though, the castle theme isn't quite as good as it's very repetitive. The biggest problem with the soundtrack is that I've just discussed nearly the entire soundtrack. Other than unique tracks for when Mario is a starman and when Mario saves the princess at the end, that's it. The soundtrack, as good as it is, gets quite stale by the end of the game, and the lack of an athletic theme sorta hurts this one, as you end up hearing the Overworld theme a lot. Now that we're done treating Super Mario Bros. Like a piece of art, it's time to talk about how this thing actually plays. And oh boy, I do not like the way Mario controls in this game. Sure, at the time, these are great fluid controls. However, in 2020, and after playing other 2D Mario platformers, this game just feels a bit sluggish. Running and jumping is something I've never been able to pull off 100% of the time, and I've died countless times due to it, which isn't ideal. Mario jumps just fine, and I have no problem with the running, but you put them both together and I'm just flummoxed. Mario's maneuverability in the air is also unfortunate. It's difficult to make mid-air adjustments in this game, and that's something I've always taken for granted in Mario games. This means in Super Mario Bros, you must be a lot more careful when planning jumps. This is a good thing in theory, but when compared to other Mario games, I'd rather the ability to correct course and save myself personally. Mario's controls completely change in the underwater stages, and it's not for the better. The Mario series would take a while to figure out water controls, and this game settled with the age-old mash the jump button to rise tactic. This works fine, but I never feel like I'm in control while in the water. Mario's movement is too slow in comparison to the enemies underwater, and that makes these water levels some of the most painful in the game. Jumping on enemies is always great fun in Mario games, but in Super Mario Bros, it does feel a little gimped. You can't get a big jump off of enemies, and I never feel like I'm in control when jumping on one. These are small nitpicks, but these nitpicks are numerous enough that it starts to become a problem. It's important to remember though that this is a 1985 NES game, and for those standards, this controls tolerably. However, this game is nowhere near the Super Meat Boy tier of 2D platformer controlling heaven. Now, the goal of the game is to rescue Princess Toadstool, who has been captured by the evil Koopa King Bowser. There are 8 worlds in total you must traverse to get to Bowser, and each one of them has 4 levels. It's pointless to talk about the worlds individually, because this game doesn't theme the worlds. Some levels have snow, for example, but this doesn't affect the gameplay. The first 3 levels in each world are a variety of normal, athletic, underground, and underwater levels, where you just have to make it to the end of the level and grab the flagpole. The 4th level of each world takes you to a castle level, filled with lava and fire bars. At the end of each fortress, you fight Bowser. In the first 7 fortresses, these Bowsers are fakes, prompting Nintendo's most infamous block. After beating the real Bowser in World 8, you rescue the princess, and that's pretty much it. You can now play hard mode, which changes a few things, including making enemies faster, adding some enemies, and turning all Goombas into buzzy beetles. But other than that, there's very little post-game content. This is a game you can 100% complete in a very short period of time. Of course, to 100% complete the game, you have to get past the variety of enemies this game has to offer. Goombas are the easiest enemy, as all you need to do is jump on them. Koopas are the same deal, except they duck into their shells after being jumped on. You can kick the shells, which is sort of satisfying enough to do, I guess, but being able to carry the shells is a feature that would be implemented later in the series, luckily. Koopa Paratroopas are Koopas with wings, but if you jump on them, they lose the wings and turn into a normal Koopa. Buzzy Beetles are normally found underground, and are the same as Koopas, except they can't be killed by fireballs. Piranha plants come out of pipes and can be tricky as you cannot defeat them by jumping on them, but they won't come out if you're standing next to the pipe, making them more manageable. Cheep Cheeps are the easier water enemy, but can be tricky during the overworld levels where a bunch of them fly at you. Bullet bills can come out of nowhere, but they are predictable and can be jumped on. Like piranha plants, the launchers won't shoot if you're standing next to them. Bloopers are also found in the water, and these guys are tricky. They float around in different directions, attempting to cut you off and take advantage of Mario's poor underwater abilities. One reliable exploit in their AI lets you skirt across the bottom of the level safely, but it doesn't work as well when you have a power-up or when there's a gap. Despite this exploit, the bloopers are the kings of the water, at least in the original game. Lakitu flies in the sky and dumps eggs around you. When they hit the ground, they hatch into Spinies, which are like Goombas that can't be jumped on. Lakitu puts a lot of pressure on you in this game, but if you go fast towards the end without stopping and don't make mistakes, you can avoid him. Last and least, we have these guys. Hammer Bros are the game's toughest enemy. Unlike Lakitu, you can't just breeze past them normally. You have to play things pragmatically, or have a fire flower, both options work. Bowser's the boss you fight after each world, and he's pretty easy. To kill him, you just need to grab the axe behind him to take out the bridge below him, frying him and killing him with excruciating pain. He gets harder to kill as the game goes on, throwing hammers and becoming more aggressive. These do make the fights more interesting, but it doesn't change the fact that you can run right under him and win. This boss fight is a classic, but I wish it was a little bit more difficult. Besides all these enemies, there are a few things to look out for. Falling down pits or falling in the lava in castles will kill you instantly, and Koopa shells or Buzzy Beetle shells that have been pushed will hurt you like a normal enemy would. Of course, to kill all these enemies, Mario needs firepower, and this game delivers with a basic but balanced package of future Mario series staples. Mario will start off the game as a teensy tiny little boy, but with the use of a super mushroom, he's able to sustain a hit without dying, which is a huge deal in this game. Once big, Mario can then get a fire flower to gain the ability to shoot fireballs at enemies. These fireballs kill nearly every enemy in the game and really make you feel powerful. In most Mario games, the fire flower gives you another hit, but in this game, getting hit after collecting a fire flower makes you small. There's also the Starman, which makes Mario invincible and gives you the ability to kill enemies on contact. And finally, the 1-up mushroom gives you an extra life. You can also get 1-ups by collecting 100 coins. It's good that we have multiple ways to gain lives because losing all your lives makes you start from the beginning of the game. This sounds worse than it is. This is back before saving the game was a regular thing, and while it seems super archaic now, back then this was the norm. And to make things more tolerable, there are hidden warp zones and secret areas that will advance you, sometimes multiple worlds at a time. Also, if you just want to be a morally bankrupt cheating piece of shit and you hold down the A button during your game over, you will respawn in the first level of the world you were just in. The level design in Super Mario Bros. Is very obviously ahead of its time. If you boot up the newest 2D Mario game released as of 2020, New Super Mario Bros. U, and you play that game, you'll notice that the level design is not that different in the original Super Mario Bros. Sure, the levels are shorter due to hardware restrictions, but in the grand scheme of things, the normal levels feel well designed, and they feel like they were crafted with the intention of being replayed over and over again. Now notice how I said normal levels when I praised the level design. That's because the castle levels feel aged, at least to me. The all black background and repetitive music already turned me off from these, but the level design is bland in comparison to the others. Due to the lack of enemies typically seen in these levels, the castles feel barren and, to be honest, not that intimidating. World 8's castle is the exception to this, with actual enemies and even an underwater area. These castles can also be annoying in other areas. The sections approaching Bowser, where you have to traverse a hallway avoiding Bowser's fireballs, tend to last too long, considering they aren't very difficult. Some of the firebar placement reeks of the old school video game level design theory of let's just throw a bunch of shit at the player until they figure it out. And that's not even mentioning the annoying looping puzzles found in 3 castles in the game where you have to figure out the correct path to take through trial and error. Some people love this mechanic, but I don't. It always felt lazy and obtrusive to me, and while it's a cheap way to get the most out of the hardware, I just don't feel it holds up well. Speaking of cheap ways to get the most out of the hardware, we have to talk about the repeating levels. There are 4 levels in the game that are harder versions of previous levels, with more enemies on the screen, but the same layout otherwise. I'll be honest, I didn't even notice this on my first playthrough, so I feel like I can't even be mad about it. This choice pads the game out a little bit, but this doesn't bother me at all and does add a couple more levels. Once you get through the main game and play through the hard mode as well, you've pretty much exhausted the content this game has to offer. In 2020, Super Mario Bros. Offers very little replay value. You can reasonably get through everything the game has to offer in around an hour or 2. However, in 1985, this game was replay value. Super Mario Bros. Has a ton of secrets. Some are just small rooms with coins, while others send you to the sky to collect a bunch of coins, and the most valuable are warps to other worlds. There's so much to find here that you could conceivably play the game dozens of times and still find new hidden areas. While this adds replayability and offers an upside, it does reveal a hidden downside: the time limit. I understand the purpose of the time limit, and that's a challenge and adds tension to situations like stalling out a hammer bro or figuring out how to time a jump past fire bars. And for the average gamer, the time limit never forces one to go faster than they may otherwise wish. However, the time limit's inclusion adds an unnecessary barrier to my preferred way of playing this game, which would be to meticulously explore every level in order to find every secret. As much as I would love to do that, the time limit makes it more frustrating to play that way. As much as I don't care for the time limit in this game, there are a couple of other inhibitors to exploration as well. The most obvious and outdated one is the fact that you can't explore parts of the level you have been past, and this feature of Super Mario Bros. Is one of its biggest downsides to me. I just feel so cramped at points. Another inhibitor is the fact that you can't go back to previous levels. Super Mario Bros. Isn't the worst example of this in the series, but this is worth noting. The only way to replay previous levels is to start new games and play the levels sequentially again. And players would do exactly that, over and over, becoming experts at the game. But at a certain point, the people were clamoring for more of this. Soon, fans of Super Mario Bros. Would get their wish, and the game would get a sequel. From there, the Super Mario franchise was truly born. So, where do we begin with Super Mario Bros? It's one of the most important games of all time. It's one of the most successful games of all time. And luckily, it turns out to hold up pretty well. Sure, I have some nitpicks about the game, but you could probably put a perfect video game in front of me, and I'd still bitch about something. The important thing is that this game is still fun. The graphics give the game life, the soundtrack is instantly recognizable, the controls still feel decent, the level design is professional, and everything is fun. When it comes down to it, this game accomplished everything Nintendo strives for in their video games, even today. It's fun, and it gave birth to gaming's most fun franchise. Despite the rawness and the more archaic aspects of the game, Super Mario Bros. Is still a fun romp today. And luckily, it's still entirely playable in 2020. Super Mario Bros. Has been re-released and remastered over and over by Nintendo at every avenue. It was first revamped by Nintendo in 1986, when they released a freakishly difficult variant of the game called Versus Super Mario Bros. This version never left the United States until 2017, when the game was finally released as a part of the Arcade Archives collection on the Nintendo Switch, curated by Hamster Corp. And then there was Nintendo's best 4-in-1, since I don't know where I was going with this joke, Super Mario All-Stars, released for the Super Nintendo in 1993. This game featured 3 other titles we'll take a look at eventually, but Super Mario Bros. Was there too, and this is where a lot of people experienced Super Mario Bros. For the first time. The version introduced 16-bit graphics to the game, which is a unique way to play Super Mario Bros., but I prefer the 8-bit graphics. They're just so iconic. This remaster sounds way better though, with bopping SNES-tastic remixes of the original music, including a much better version of the castle theme. There's some general upgrades like echo effects in the underground levels, and a sound indicating if you picked the correct path in the looping castle sections. This version also contains small level previews at the start, which is charming. And hey, it actually has a save feature. Super Mario Bros. May have shared the spotlight with worthy adversaries on Super Mario All-Stars, but in 1997, it would be the focus of a brand new remaster on the Game Boy Color called Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. This is the definitive version of Super Mario Bros. The graphics are the same 8-bit NES graphics, which is neat. Super Mario Bros. DX introduces backtracking and now features these fun animations between the levels. The game includes a challenge mode and even has multiplayer, making it the first Mario 2D platformer to incorporate real multiplayer. It's the perfect version. Wait, look at this screen. Now look at the game. Now look at the NES version. You see the problem? Yeah, this version suffers from the infamous screen crunch, which really sucks the life out of all the superlatives I've been handing this port. Also, this cheap noise. Since Super Mario Bros. Was remastered on the Game Boy Color, it had to sit by and watch as Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario World, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, and Super Mario Bros. 3 were made prettier on the shiny new Game Boy Advance. GBA users, do not fret. As a part of the NES Classics release, the original Super Mario Bros. Game is made available, unchanged. This is a bit underwhelming compared to the Super Mario Advance series, but it is nice to at least have it on the system. Now, since Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, the original game has never been remastered. However, that does not mean that's where the game's release ends. If your console has or once had a connection to the internet, there's a good chance an emulated version of the original game is available, except for the Nintendo DS. Sorry, DS fans. The game first popped up on the Nintendo Wii's Virtual Console on Christmas Day in 2006, making it one of the very first games released on the service. Super Mario All-Stars saw a physical re-release on the Wii in 2010 as well, as a celebration of the game's 25-year anniversary. Members of the 3DS Ambassador Program got the game on the Nintendo 3DS in September of 2011, and the rest of us got the game in February 2012. In addition, Super Mario Bros. Deluxe was actually released in December 2014 on the 3DS Virtual Console as well. The Wii U didn't get the game until September of 2013, 10 months after the Wii U launched in North America. 2016's NES Classic comes with 30 games, including Super Mario Bros. Come on, what you think, the NES Classic wasn't gonna get Super Mario Bros? And in 2018, with the release of the highly anticipated and critically successful Nintendo Switch Online, the new NES subscription service launched with 20 games, including, come on, stop being surprised at Super Mario Bros. Being on any official NES game pack. Although I've played the game emulated on the 3DS Virtual Console before, this is how I played the game for this review. In fact, this entire video is basically a way for me to say I got to play one of gaming's most iconic video games legally, for free, handheld. Man, the future's so cool. All the above options are totally valid for playing the game, making Super Mario Bros. One of the most accessible retro video games, provided you have a Nintendo console, except for the Nintendo DS. Sorry, DS fans. Super Mario Bros. Is a simple game when it all comes down to it. With only 32 levels, a handful of enemies and level types, primitive 8-bit graphics, and a limited soundtrack, Super Mario Bros. Is a game that looks less inviting than modern Mario games. The beauty of this game, though, is how iconic it is. From start to finish, it feels like you're playing through history. It's thrilling to play level 1-1, knowing that this is the level that started it all. While frustrating controls at times can mar the experience, thoughtful game design allowed Super Mario Bros. To escape the fate many series first games suffer from, and Super Mario Bros. Is not just something to sit in your collection. Super Mario Bros. Is still a good game now, and as such, honorably opens up the Glut.